Welcome everybody to Monster Monday for May 3rd, 2021. I'm your host, DM Gallibond, and tonight on Monster Monday, we are going to be talking about the Beholder. This is perhaps one of the most iconic, most popular, most feared, most legendary creatures in every monster manual since the beginning of the D&D game. It is something that came into the game early on, and it has remained largely unchanged in its general concept, but mechanically it has kind of been all over the place. And there are times when it appears sort of by itself in an edition, and there are times that it appears as the alpha of a whole range of aberrations of a similar format. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at the Beholder tonight. Before we start, as always, I want to give a shout out to Mo over at the Tabletop Bellhop. Mo is the OG for all things tabletop games. He's got board games, party games, RPG, tabletop RPGs, whatever, you name it, he's got it over there. Go ahead and visit Mo, and he will take care of all of your tabletop needs. All right, this lovely image here is the Beholder. A Beholder is also known as an eye tyrant or a sphere of many eyes. Looks like a large floating ball, about 4 feet in diameter, covered with tough armor-plated skin. Atop the Beholder are 10 small eyes on stalks, each with its own magical power. A large central eye is on the front of the body with a toothy mouth below it. Now that is the description of the monster from Basic D&D. So the rules cyclopedia that covered all of the D&D game leading up to AD&D, which we commonly think of as first edition, that's how it was described, and this image comes from that very source, the rules cyclopedia. All right, in first edition, the globular body of this monster is supported by levitation, floats slowly about as it wills. Atop the sphere are 10 eye stalks, while its central area are a great 11th eye and a large mouth filled with pointed teeth. The body is protected by a hard chitinous covering. And then from second edition, this creature, also called the Sphere of Many Eyes of the Eye Tyrant, appears as a large orb dominated by a central eye and a large toothy maw, and has 10 smaller eyes on stalks sprouting from the top of the orb. So, as you can tell, edition by edition, the general description of the monster doesn't change. Now, if you get into the fine details, you'll see that sometimes the monster is larger than 4 feet, sometimes it's about 4 feet. I think in one edition it's as large as 10 feet across. So it does vary in size, but in shape or in form, it doesn't vary that much. All right, so now, what about the lore of Beholders? What do they say? Now, this image is the 5th edition Beholder image, and if you'll notice as we go through tonight, you'll see edition by edition, there's some different ideas of what the eyeballs on the central eye and the eye stalks look like. So, Beholder lore. Beholders are among the few creatures that can shape reality in their vicinity. In addition, Beholders don't truly sleep when they rest. Instead, a Beholder's mind remains semi-conscious even as it dreams. As a result, on rare occasions when a Beholder dreams of another Beholder, the dream reality becomes warped and takes on physical form, becoming another actual Beholder. To call this process reproduction would be inaccurate because in most cases the old and new Beholders fight to the death. a fact for which the rest of the world is thankful. Okay, well, why do they fight to the death? And that's a description out of the 5th edition Volo's Guide to Monsters. Well, why would they fight to the death? Well, beholder eye tyrants consider themselves to be paragons of creation, and they like to rule over lesser creatures, which includes other beholders. An eye tyrant's ego prevents it from getting along with others of its kind. That is 4th edition lore about the beholder. Then looking back to 3rd edition, beholders are hateful, aggressive, and avaricious, attacking or dominating others whenever they can get away with it. They exhibit a xenophobic intolerance, hating all creatures not like themselves. And yes, that means not exactly like themselves. That beholder in the mirror, God, that's the most beautiful, beautiful creation that ever was sparked by the minds of the gods. That other beholder over there, that's an ugly piece of trash. I'm going to get rid of it. that's kind of the way that that beholders think. All right. Now here's another image out of the 5th edition Volo's Guide to Monsters. The beholder is an aberration. So aberrations are utterly alien beings. Many of them have innate magical abilities drawn from the creature's alien mind rather than mystical forces of the world. Quintessential aberrations are aboleths, beholders, mind flayers, and slotty. They are so different than anything you would normally find in the fantasy world, whether it's a magical creature or a mundane creature or whatever. The aberrations are just truly, completely, and totally different in their form and their makeup and their intellect even. All right, so now we are going to the part of the show that everybody likes the best, where we take an in-depth look at all of the individual other individual items out of the different history of the creature. Okay, so where are we? We are here. All right, so we're looking at the Rule Cyclopedia. This is the beholder from original D&D, and as you notice, armor class, it's got 3 separate armor classes. So the armor classes for the body, the eye stalks, and the main eye are the 3 different armor classes that it has. The body is the toughest armor class at AC 0. Central eye is AC 2, and then the eye stalk is AC 7. And so it's one of the few creatures in D&D that you can actually attempt to attack different parts of it. Now, we know that they float around, and the beholder's eye, each of the beholder's eyes has an effect, a magical effect that it does. And the central eye is one of the most terrifying of them, although it doesn't sound like it to start with. That front eye always projects an anti-magic ray, which temporarily turns off or disables all magic within 60 feet of the beholder. So that means any enchanted items, like any enchanted weapons, temporarily lose all of their enchantments. So that nifty +1 sword you're so proud of, it's just a regular sword while it's in that eye ray. It also means that magic that's on you. So that means that spell of mage armor you have, no, you don't have it. as long as you're in front of the beholder. It's gone. It's suppressed. All of those protection spells you have, the bless that you have, the other buffs, they're all disabled while you are within 60 feet of that beholder. Also means your nifty magic armor, it's not magical. It's just mundane armor. So these are that's one reason why it's really devastating, and that's one thing that makes the beholder so powerful, is that it can nullify a lot of the magical benefits that its enemies have. And then the eye stalks, each, as I said, have their own power. So the first eye does Charm Person, range to 120 feet. Second eye will do Charm Monster, range to 120 feet. Third eye will do Sleep to a range of 240 feet. Telekinesis, range 120 feet up to 5,000 coins or 500 pounds of weight. So it can basically use that eye to just pick up something that weighs up to 500 pounds and throw it across the room. Eye 5, Flesh to Stone. So it's kind of got that Medusa effect or that basilisk effect we were talking about last week. Eye 6 is Disintegrate. Eye 7 is Cause Fear, make everybody run away. Eye 8, Slow, make everybody slow down. Eye 9, Cause Serious Wounds. And then Eye 10 is Death Spell. So the Death Spell is like a early edition or early version of like the Finger of Death, except it's really a lot more devastating, because it requires a failed save, or requires a saving throw. You fail the save, you just simply die. If you make your save, I think you drop to half your total hit points. Whatever your current hit points are, you're just cut in half if you make your save. Now, 4 eyes can aim in one direction at the same time. They cannot see the area directly below the body. And each eye stalk can shoot a ray with a different spell-like effect once per round. So that's another thing that's different. In original D&D, you could get targeted by 4 of those eyes, and they could all shoot their effects at you at the same time. Now, in later editions, we will see that the beholder has been nerfed a little bit. But so you could imagine if you could get 4 of these effects, and you're supposed to, as the DM, you're supposed to roll at random to see which 4 of the eye stalks would be pointing in the direction of one person. So, it might be the telekinesis and the flesh to stone, the disintegrate, and the death spell would all be pointed at Bob the Barbarian, and he would get to make 4 saving throws against those, which would be pretty bad for your barbarian. Or it might just be like Charm Monster and Cause Fear and Slow, and Cause Serious Wounds are pointed at him. And so it's like, yeah, it would still get affected and it would still be deleterious, but it wouldn't be, he wouldn't be literally making saving throws for his life like he would be. And then, of course, if that's not bad enough, he, of course, has that bite. And the bite is 2d8 damage in this edition. So now we move to first edition. The beholder is this big soccer ball thing here again, and it's got pretty much the same kind of effects on its eyes, and the ranges work a little bit differently. Now you'll notice that telekinesis is dropped from 500 pounds down to 250 pounds. The Death Ray is still there. The Anti-Magic Ray is still there. And it's got the 0, 2, and 7 armor class. Just the same. And the attack with a bite is 2d4 instead of 2d8. So his bite is a little less fearsome in first edition. Now, also in first edition, in the Monster Manual 2, which is what we're looking at here, we start to see the first of the Beholder kin. Beholder kin are other aberrations that are kind of in the Beholder family, but they are lesser beings than the Eye Tyrants. I think the reason they did this is because the Beholder was such a popular monster. They said, okay, it's a really popular monster, but it's far too powerful to throw at low-level parties. So let's try to figure out how to make some different variations of it. And I'm sure that there were DMs homebrewing variations on the Beholder from the day that it first hit the day that the first rulebook hit the gaming shop shelves. All right, so this one is a Spectator. Spectator has the same size body, 4-foot diameter body, and it has a little bit easier armor class. The body is armor class 4, the eyes are armor class 7, 4+4 hit dice, and the Spectator has large central eye and 4 smaller eye stalks, and the all right, so let's see, what are the okay, here are the effects of the eyes. The central eye actually will reflect spells. So if there's a spellcaster standing in front of the Spectator and tries to cast a spell, they give an example of casting a lightning bolt spell. That spell can bounce back and be reflected back at the caster. So that's a pretty horrible thing. The first eye stalk does not do an attack at all. It does create food and water. So you can already tell this is a very, very different kind of monster. Now the second one, oh yeah, cause serious wounds? Sure, just the same as the eye stalk on its larger cousin. I3 paralyzation ray, so it can target one target and paralyze them for 5d4 rounds, so 5 to 20 rounds. Spectator never attacks a paralyzed character or uses him or her for food, and a paralyzed character might be allowed to go its own way if it's willing to leave in peace. And I4 is telepathy, and so the this one is much less of a predator and much more of a denizen of the of dark places, and its alignment is lawful neutral as opposed to the evil of the Beholder. So you start to see how people have started to play around with the Beholder and make very different sort of iterations of it, indeed. All right, now in second edition gives us the first really full expanded range family of Beholders. So there's not just the 6 that you see here. There's actually like 12 different Beholder kins in second edition. And they range from the actual Beholder itself, which has the same 0, 2, 7 armor class as we've seen before. You have something called a Death Kiss, which has special attacks of Blood Drain and special regeneration, or special defenses of regeneration. It's a huge monster, 6 to 12 feet in diameter, as opposed to the Beholder, which is 4 to 6 feet in diameter. Then you have an Eye of the Deep, which is a very deep ocean version, and it's a small version, 3 to 5 feet in diameter. The Gauth is a beholderkin that survives by consuming magic. And it does special attacks against magic items and magical effects. It also has special defenses of regeneration. Then you have the Spectator that we've seen before in first edition. It is medium-sized, 4 feet in diameter. Then you have the Undead Beholder, which again looks like or acts a lot like the regular Beholder, except that it also has the undead qualities to it. And the special attacks are magic, and the special defenses are the anti-magic ray. So let's take a look at the Death Kiss. Central body of the Death Kiss has no mouth. Its central eye gives a 120-foot intravision, but the Death Kiss has no magical powers. And it's 90% likely to be taken for a beholder when sighted. 10 tentacles largely retract into the body when not needed, resembling eye stalks, but can lash out to a full 20-foot stretch with blinding speed. And so they, those eye stalks actually, as we see here with this, this is our Death Kiss here. Those tentacles are what does that blood drain when it attacks somebody. All right, spectator. Okay, here's more of our different beholderkin. You even have a beholder that kind of looks like a tree with a big mouth and then eyes at the ends of its limbs. So you can tell that the beholder, the people that have created beholders, have really gone nuts with different types of beholders. So much so that they actually have been incorporated into the official source books. All right, so now we have the next 6 variations of the beholder. You have a hive mother, which is an 8-foot in diameter, 20 hit die version of a beholder. And the legendary hive mothers are also called the ultimate tyrants, or just ultimates. Twice the size of a typical beholder and differ in appearance as well. The mouths are larger, so large they can gulp down a man-sized target on a natural die roll of 20. Once swallowed, the prey takes 5d4 damage every round until it's dead or escapes. Then you have the Director, which is let's see, armor class here. Where are we? Come on, armor class. Give me 2 to 4 is the armor class, and 2 attacks of 2d4 each. Again, it's a huge item, or a huge monster. The Director is an abomination. It's a social warrior beholder, and they breed specialized mounts. They mind link with their mounts to better control them. Directors resemble beholders, but their central eye is smaller, possess only 6 small eye stalks or 6 small eyes that will do magic missile, burning hands, wall of ice, slow, innervation, and improved phantasmal force. Then you have an Examiner, which is basically a nocturnal beholder. It is armor class of 5, and one attack with 1d6. Again, magic attacks and magic defenses. So there's examiners have no central eye and only 4 small eyes at the end of an antenna mounted atop the sphere. And that can do enlarge or reduce, identify or legend lore, transmute form, similar to stone shape, but works on all types of non-magical, non-living material, and spell reflection as a ring of spell turning. So basically, it doesn't use its magic to attack. It basically uses its magic as defenses, and then it just attacks with its mouth. Lensman is an insectivore, so it eats insects. It has an armor class of 3 and 7, and it's a 5-foot tall beholderkin. One eye set in the chest of its 5-limbed starfish-shaped simian body. Beneath the eye is a leering toothy maw. 4 of the 5 limbs and in 3-fingered, 2-thumbed, clawed hands. 5th limb atop the body is a prehensile whip-like tentacle. So, lensmen are semi-mindless drones that don't question their lot in life. The eye of each lensman possesses only one of the following 6 special powers. And so you basically have to roll a d6 to figure out which power its eye has. So it can and these are based on 2nd edition spells. So it does the emotion spell, the heal spell, dispel magic, tongues, phantasmal force, or protection. And it can be any kind of protection, but only active one at a time. So even the ones that have a protection eye, it's still going to be kind of random. Protection against missiles, protection against evil, protection against whatever. Then you have the Overseer, which has the armor class of 2 and 7. And it's a 14-hit die monster. It's a 15-foot tall, creature, and the Overseer resembles a fleshy tree, 13 limbs, each which ends in a bud that conceals an eye. One of these limbs forms the top spine, and 3 yammering mouths surround the spine. There are 8 thorny, vine-like limbs that are used to grasp tools and for physical defense. They inflict 1d10 plus 2 damage when they hit. And its eyes can do Cone of Cold, Dispel Magic, Paralysis, Chain Lightning, Telekinesis of 250 pounds, Emotion, Mass Charm, Domination, Mass Suggestion, Major Creation, Spell Turning, Certain Spell Immunity, or Temporal Stasis. So that's a pretty weird variation on the Beholder. Are you guys that are DMs, are you getting ideas about some of the different variations that you could use in your game if you wanted to throw these creatures at your party? I know that I am. Then we have the Watcher. The Watcher's armor class 7, 3 plus 3 hit dice. So it's not that tough of a monster. Magical attacks, magical defenses, 6-foot diameter, and the Watcher has the 3 central eyes arranged around the circumference of the sphere, huge and unlidded. The crown is composed of crown of the sphere is a compound eye and a ring of 6 eye spots that make it difficult to surprise. And Watchers can attack with their single tentacle for 3d6 points of damage, and it also inflicts an electrical shock. Victims who fail a system shock roll fall unconscious. Yes, there used to be a saving throw called system shock, and if you got hit by one of these, it knocked you out. Each of the Watcher's main eyes has 2 powers. Compound Eye may draw on 3 different abilities. And so that's True Seeing and ESP, Advanced Illusion and Demi Shadow Magic, Telekinesis at 1,000 pounds, and Teleport. And a Compound Eye can do Message, Tongues, and Suggestions. And Watchers are not aggressive warriors. They prefer misdirection and flight to actual confrontation. So then there's even other things that they hint at that they didn't detail in this version. So Beholder Mage, the Elder Orb, the Orbis, the Doom Sphere, the Kasharin, the Asteroider, and the Gorbel. And the Gorbel is actually something that we will see a little bit later on in one of the different editions. Yes, Skylin, Overseer does sound dangerous. Glad you're getting some ideas. Yeah, party just hit level 5, and that would be a very interesting challenge for them. Okay, so now they talked about the Gorbel in the Monstrous Manual from 2nd edition. Well, here in the 2nd edition Fiend Folio, they actually give us the Gorbel as a monster. So this is a tropical creature. It actually has legs and feet, and they come in herds. So they're 2 hit dice monsters, 3 armor class. They're 3 foot diameter. Special attacks are explosion, and special defenses is they're immune to blunt weapons. So Gorbel is an odd creature. They attack and eat practically anything that moves. Only their explosive nature keeps them from overrunning their habitat. So basically, this is one of the first monsters in D&D that if you wind up killing it, it will actually explode, and it will it will deal damage when it explodes. And as they say here, Gorbels are not immune to the explosions of their herd mates if in range. Entire herds have been known to be destroyed themselves accidentally in a chain reaction explosion caused by damage to a single creature. So that is the Gorbel. That's definitely a very interesting take on the Beholder. Yes. So a successful hit with a piercing or slashing weapon bursts the Gorbel's balloon-like body. A cloud of pyrophoric gas is thus released and explodes for 1d4 points of blast damage to any creature within 5 feet. Magically incurred damage will also cause the creature to explode, regardless of damage actually inflicted. So these basically, you hit them once, they blow up. And if you get in the middle of a herd of them and you hit one of them, a bunch of them can blow up, and it can do some serious damage to your party. And serious damage to the herd as well. Alright, now we go to 3rd edition. And the 3rd edition Beholder, they also have the Gauth, which is a variant of the Beholder. The Gauth flies for 20 feet, and in 3rd edition, they gave maneuverability to all kinds of flight. So it's good maneuverability, which means if you have good or better maneuverability, you can hover. So Beholders and Gauths, Beholderkins, they can hover. They have their eye raise, and they have their other attack. So let's see, what's the full attack? Eye raise and a bite. So the armor class is 19 because 3rd edition is when armor class finally went to the modern variant of the higher the armor class, the better, instead of the lower the armor class. It's kind of in a cold, they're from cold climates. And the Gauth 6 eye rays resemble a spell cast by an 8th level caster. So there's Sleep, Inflict Moderate Wounds, Dispel Magic, Scorching Ray, Paralysis, and Exhaustion. And then it has a Stunning Gaze from the central eye. And then in the regular Beholder, you have, this again is a large aberration, so that is where we get the size of about 10 feet in diameter or so. Armor class of 26. The eye rays are +9 ranged attack, and then the bite is 2d4 damage. So once again, the biggest bite damage seemed to be in the original Beholder, and ever since then they've kind of toned it down so that the bite is not quite so powerful. Although, it doesn't need to be with all of the effects that the eye stalks can do. You also see the different art. I love looking at these monsters through the editions, because you see how the art evolves and how it changes and whatnot. And I hope that you guys have noticed that sometimes the eyes like this one are more kind of mammalian, where they have an iris and a pupil that are more or less round, but some of them are also kind of cat-like, and where they have like a vertically slitted pupil. And then you'll see in 5th edition, they have gone to great lengths to try to make sure that every eye on a Beholder is a different color. And the reason they do that is so that as your party is finding it, or is fighting it, they can kind of pick out, oh, okay, it's the blue eye that's doing the telekinesis, and it's the red eye that's doing the flesh to stone, and it's the purple eye that's doing the death ray, or whatever it is. So the each of the Beholder's 10 eye rays resembles a spell cast by a 13th level caster. And they do Charm Monster, Charm Person, Disintegrate, Fear, Finger of Death, Flesh to Stone, Inflict Moderate Wounds, Slow, and Telekinesis. And then it has that anti-magic cone that is the central eye. Now you remember back in the day in original edition, that anti-magic cone was 60 feet. Well, here in 3rd edition, it's 150 feet. So now you have to be even further away for the spells to be affected. And yes, the way that the anti-magic cone is reading here, it does mean that if you have a spell that's beyond that range, like, let's say a fireball, you don't want to try to cast a fireball at a Beholder from in front of it, because as soon as that spell enters that anti-magic, it just sort of and winks out. And there goes your spell. You've already casted it, you've wasted the spell slot, and nothing. So if you're going to fireball a Beholder, do it from behind. Don't do it from in front of the monster. That's going to be something we talk about when we talk about tactics for fighting a Beholder as a party later on. Is be very aware of your positioning on the battlefield compared to where that central eye is, because if you're inside that cone, a lot of the cool stuff you probably want to try to do is not going to be able to be done, because if you're fighting a Beholder, you're most assuredly a party that has some magical capabilities and magical weapons, and you don't want to have those be disrupted by that anti-magic ray that is coming from that Beholder's central eye. Okay, So let's see. Now, okay, well, we have the Gauth. Now, in the Monster Manual 2 from 3rd edition, they introduced a Fihyr. Fihyr is a. I put it in here. The lore about it says it's not related to a beholder, but this is a great homebrew variant that you might want to think about for a beholder. As the remnants of hundreds of people's nightmares swirl through the ether, they somehow combine with leftover magical power and coalesce into these physical monsters. A few random dream images aren't enough. It takes the strong emotional energy of a mass of people under duress to spawn a Fihyr. The right combination of conditions is most often found in cities that are under siege or being terrorized by monsters or suffering from famine, civil war, or some other mass trauma. Right there, great way that you can sort of say, well, why is this thing here? What's going on? Well, you can sort of look at the environment and see how it might generate something. So you have the Fihyr and the Great Fihyr. The small aberration is 4d8 hit dice. The greater one is 16d8. Armor class is 18 in both cases. The normal Fihyr does 1 bite at +2 melee attack. The greater Fihyr has 4 bites at +12 melee attack, and the damage is significantly different on each variant. Again, at this point you get a full stat block in 3rd edition for the monster, and as well as all of the skills that it has and the feats that it has. And then this is what the Greater Fihyr looks like. It has all of these eyes on it, which the eyes are basically just to see, but they also have the fact that they're all over the place make them terrifying in their visage and appearance. So they have some supernatural abilities. They have frightful presence. Any creature that witnesses a Great Fihyr attacking becomes panicked if it fails a will save, DC 20. Emotion control. At will, the Great Fihyr can produce an effect like that of an emotion spell, so despair, fear, or hate only. And then invisibility. The Great Fihyr can become invisible at will, and it will remain invisible as long as it wishes, even while using its emotion control ability. And normally, a Great Fihyr is visible only immediately after delivering a melee attack. So, that is quite terrifying. Not only are these things horrifying to look at, but they can go invisible and then attack you from a cloak of invisibility. So that would definitely indeed be a very cool variation of a monster to throw at your party. Okay, now in the source book of the Monsters of Faerun, there are a number of Beholderkin in 3rd edition, and these include different types of even class-based creatures. So, Beholder Mage. Beholders who lose or put out their central anti-magic eye can gain levels as Beholder Mages. And in theory, a normal Beholder can become a wizard or sorcerer. Reality difficulties with handling spell components, central eye's anti-magic function, and the fact the Beholder wizard or sorcerer wishes to cast a spell cannot use its eye rays prevent Beholders from learning magic through the standard classes. So they give you the whole kit and caboodle if you want to roll up a Beholder Mage and have that be something that confronts your party. Then you have the Death Kiss. We've seen that before in earlier editions. 10 tentacles, and those tentacles drain blood, as we've seen before. So here's your Beholder Mage with its central eye put out. This is the 3rd edition variant of the Death Kiss. So you see, you have all of these horrifying talons and maws at the end of these arms. And notice this guy's pupil is is like a 3-way slot there. So they do. They one of the things with the Death Kiss is it has a Death Shiver. At death, all of the remaining electrical force remaining in the Death Kiss body shoots out of its corpse. All beings within a 5 to 50 foot radius spread must make a reflex save or suffer 2d10 points of electrical damage. So basically, that radius is random, 1d10 times 5 feet. If you're within that radius, when it dies, you're going to get zapped. And then the Beholder can eyeball. So they have just 1 hit die, about 3 hit points. Armor class 18. And the eyeballs are an 8-inch wide relative of the dreaded Beholder. They live as wild animals, but they can also be adopted as familiars by evil spellcasters. Central eye and smaller eye stalks, but they do have eye rays, and eyeballs can only use one of their 4 rays at a time. In addition, an eyeball that fires a daze ray or a ray of frost cannot fire another daze or ray of frost for 2 rounds. And each eye's effect resembles a spell cast by a sorcerer, but follows the rules for a ray. So you have Cause Fear, Daze, Mage Hand, and Ray of Frost. Immunities, they're immune to charm and command effects. All-round vision, exceptionally alert. And then it goes into the society and everything for the eyeballs and their social structure and whatnot. Then we have the Gouger. It is a AC 24, and the bite or tongue is plus 14 melee attacks. Special attacks has the anti-magic eye, the eye gouge, the tongue strike. So these are, unlike its 10 eye stalks, which are magically useless, the Gouger's central eye retains a magical function, emitting the same anti-magic field. Gougers can be distinguished from their true beholders by their size 10 feet wide compared to the 7 feet of a regular beholder in this edition. And their crazed appearance, 10 spastically twitching eyeball stalks devoid of magical function. Their screams, their legs, 4 small limbs attached to the underside of the orb, and their horrible tongues stretching as far as 15 feet from the body to strike their prey. So they have that anti-magic cone. They can do a tongue strike. It threatens a critical hit on a roll of 19 or 20. And it deals 3 times damage on a critical hit instead of 2. The eye gouge, when the gouger's tongue attack hits another beholder or beholderkin, that beholder must make a reflex save or you lose the use of one of its eyes for the next few rounds. All-round vision and flight. So all kinds of weird and wonderful 3rd edition variations of the Beholderkin. Then we come to 4th edition, and 4th edition only gives us 2 different variations of the Beholder in the Monster Manual. Now, they also created like Monster Manual 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I don't have all of that catalog, so there's probably some other Beholders in there that were released later on in the run of 4th edition. But the Eye of Flame has a central eye that the target of the central eye gains vulnerability 10 fire, which means that any attack with fire deals an additional 10 damage. And any attack that deals fire damage to the target also deals ongoing fire damage. So the Eye Rays, Eye of Flame can use up to 2 Eye Ray powers, at least one of which must be a Fire Ray. So it can do the Fire Ray, Telekinesis Ray, Fear Ray. And then Fiery Burst when it's first bloodied, and again when it's reduced to hero points. It's a close burst out to 10 feet or 2 squares, plus 17 and 2d8 plus 6 fire damage to everybody within that range. And then the Eye Tyrant is the traditional beholder. So, and notice the different levels. The Beholder Eye of Flame is a level 13 artillery. The Beholder Eye Tyrant is a level 19 solo artillery. And so a level 13 artillery, that's 204 hit points with a bloodied value of 102. The level 19 solo is 900 hit points, the bloodied value of 450. And the armor class is 33. With a fortitude of 30, reflex of 32, and will of 34. Gains plus 5 to all of its saving throws. So the Eye Rays, it has a Searing Ray, which deals radiant damage, a Withering Ray, which deals necrotic damage, a Sleep Ray, which will put things to sleep, Telekinesis Ray, which will push the target up to 20 feet, a Hold Ray, which restrains, like a hold person spell, Confusion Ray, which is a charm effect, a Fear Ray, which is causes fear, Petrifying Ray, which will petrify, a Death Ray, which deals necrotic damage, and a Disintegration Ray. So that will deal 2d10 plus 9 damage with ongoing 2d20 damage. And then after you make the initial save for the 2d20 damage, the after effect is still ongoing 2d6 damage, so you have to save from that again. So you have to make the save to end the ongoing 2d20 damage. Then you have to make another save to end the ongoing 2d6 damage. So the 4th edition Beholders are no joke. They're really, really tough. But then again, everything is kind of skewed differently in 4th edition because you can easily have 4th or 5th level PCs that have over 100 hit points in the 4th edition because of the way they do hit points in that one. All right, now we come to the modern Beholder, 5th edition Beholder out of the Monster Manual, and it's a large aberration. So again, it's about between 6 to 10 feet in diameter, size of a horse basically. It has the anti-magic cone from the central eye, which is a 150-foot cone. So that range of that cone has stayed since 3rd edition to be a larger cone. The bite deals 4d6 piercing damage. So the bite has become a bit more potent in 5th edition than it was for a while. It's even more potent than it was in the original version. But now the Eye Rays, it can shoot 3 of the following magical Eye Rays at random. So now this is one of the things when you're using a Beholder in 5th edition as a DM. If you really want to stay true to the idea of this being an aberration and being totally alien, there's random chance comes into it. So you just basically roll a d10 3 times, ignoring duplicates, and those are the 3 eyes that go off. And then you figure out where you're gonna land those. So there's a charm ray, paralyzing ray, fear ray, slowing ray, innervation ray, telekinetic ray, sleep ray, petrification ray, disintegration ray, and death ray. And the disintegration ray, if the target is a creature, must succeed on DC 16 Dex save or take 10d8 force damage, and if that damage reduces the creature to 0 hit points, its body becomes a pile of fine gray dust. So it is not, you don't go to saving throws, you don't do that. This is one of the monsters in 5th edition where if you're dead, you're dead. You're just out of it. And the death ray is similar. It's a DC 16 Dex save or 10d10 necrotic damage, and if the target dies, the ray reduces it to 0 hit points. So again, no death saves, no going unconscious, nobody coming over and doing it. You're just dead if it hits you with a death ray. So, 5th edition Beholder, it's one of those monsters that doesn't feel like it's been totally nerfed. It feels like it's still a very scary, very deadly foe, which is cool because there's a lot of things you can do with a Beholder. Now, Volo's Guide to Monsters is almost essential if you want to run a Beholder because it gives you so much information. It has an entire section dedicated to Beholders. And of course, this is all goes into the culture and the history, the battle tactics, how you can role play Beholders. It even has a whole series of tables on how you can create variations of Beholders. So a lot of the stuff that I like to do as homebrew has already been done for me, and as a DM, that makes me very happy because I can just go and consult tables, roll dice, and build the kind of monster that I want to, or I can just scan the tables and pick the things that I want. So they are Beholders, as we've seen. They are megalomaniacal. They believe themselves to be the paragons of creation, the pinnacles of all that they survey. Everything else is beneath them, and they are paranoid. They are the absolutely most paranoid creatures that you will ever see, which that can make them so much fun as a DM if you really want to throw yourself into, think of like the craziest villains that you can think of from history, from literature, from films, and TV and whatnot, and just pour that into playing a Beholder because it's so much fun to do. So we have in 5th edition, the Beholderkin includes the Death Kiss, the Gazers, the Spectators, and the Gauths. So a lot of the ones we've seen, but of course, as with 5th edition, it's kind of pared down. You can go back into the older editions and you can pull from some of the design ideas and then sort of reskin a Beholder to look like those, or bring some of those effects up into 5th edition and modify them slightly. And if you're going to do a homebrew monster like that, it doesn't really matter how faithful you are to tough or how easy a monster should be in 5th edition. As long as you are gearing it more to what your party is capable of handling, and you put, if you want it to be a really tough encounter, put something that's going to give them a challenge, but something that they reasonably ought to be able to defeat, and not put something in front of them that's just going to wipe the floor with them. Because definitely, depending on the level of your party, you could overcook an encounter with some of those earlier edition versions of beholders. So, beholder body diameter, you can roll on a table, the skin color, the skin texture, eye color, iris shape, eye size, eye stalk texture, eye stalk shape, mouth shape and size, beholder teeth shape. So you can do all kinds of weird things when you want to create a beholder. And then they give you a whole list of personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. Table full of names, and then an entire section on battle tactics. And they even give us in here, they even give us a nice little, come on, where are you? A nice little map of a beholder lair. So you have the, and these are things that it will tell you that the beholder has all carved out with its disintegration ray eye stalk, and in some cases it has gotten slaves or minions to go and build parts of its lair for it, and it laces this place with traps, with trophies, with obstacles, the different types of chambers that it has. The lair of a beholder is at once meant to impress the people that it wants to impress and intimidate everybody that comes into it, and also demonstrate its superiority. And so you can really play that up if you're going to design a beholder lair where, think about somebody who is so full of themselves that they have no concept of what their own flaws are. And a really great beholder lair is something that the beholder themselves believes is this totally impregnable, unbreachable, inescapable, design. And yet, the party looking at it is like, wait a minute, I wonder if it knows that I could just use that. And the truth is, the beholder probably doesn't know that the party could just use that to kind of totally screw up the plans that the beholder has. So that's one kind of fun thing, is always throw in a few little flaws into the lair, but don't tell the party that there are flaws there. Just put them there and make them work to find them, but reward them when they do find them, because they can use it to sort of outsmart the beholder, who thinks of itself as such this entire pinnacle of intellect and ferocity and domination and everything. So those are some of the things that you'll find in 5th edition Volo's Guide to Monsters. All right, now we're going to go back and we're going to take a look again at our okay. Take a look at this. And we'll go back to the slides. Okay, we have been through that. All right, so in 5th edition, if you're thinking of using a beholder as an encounter, there's beholders have a CR of 13 when they're encountered outside their lair, which is very rare, and a CR of 14, which when they are encountered in their lair. And so, if you're going to throw these against a party of 5 PCs, if those PCs are anywhere between level 8 and level 10, a single beholder by itself is going to be a hard encounter. Once the party hits level 11 to level 13, the beholder becomes a medium encounter. And if you want to fill out that encounter to make it a tough encounter, for a level 13 party, you can throw a blue slot in there. Now, remember when I try to build these encounter ideas, I try to use monsters that come from the same type. So the slot is another type of aberration that goes along with the beholder. And it really wouldn't make sense by lore to put 2 beholders together because they are paranoid and they hate each other. And unless you wanted to put a situation where the whole goal of the encounter is for the party to sort of play the 2 beholders against each other until they start attacking each other and ignore the party, which that would be a possibility if you wanted to do that. Then when the beholder becomes, or when the party becomes level 14 to 18, the beholder becomes an easy encounter. And if you want to make that a hard encounter, you can put 2 death slots at level 18 to throw against the party along with the beholder. Alright, so fighting against beholders as a party. They're very tricky to fight against because of the random nature of their attacks. So those eye stalks, we know they can fire 3 of them at one time. And so you don't ever know which one is coming. The main thing, like we said, is being situationally aware of where that beholder is and what direction its central eye is facing. So this is something where when you're playing this as a party, if you're a DM, it's really going to help your players if you have some kind of a token or some kind of a miniature or something like that that you can use and you can turn to show which direction the central eye is facing. Because that is going to then help them figure out where they want to be. It's also going to keep you honest and let you know, okay, here's the direction it's facing. If I'm thinking about the anti-magic cone, well, there's only these 2 or 3 party members that are in that area of that cone, so they're the ones that would be affected. The other ones that are too far off to the side or on the opposite side from that central eye, they are not going to be in that cone. And a smart party that really plans ahead will probably do things like try to arrange themselves circularly around the beholder and draw it out into an area where they can get around it so that not everybody will be in the range of that anti-magic ray or anti-magic field at one time. Now, the beholder also has legendary actions. So that means that with each legendary action, it can fire up to an additional random eye ray. So on its turn, it's going to fire 3, but in every round, it can fire a total of 6. Once again, keep in mind, every time one of those fires off, it's a roll of a d10 to figure out which one goes off. So that is that's a thing to keep in mind with when you're facing a beholder. So stock up on resistances and immunities as much as possible. Stay out of the way of that anti-magic ray or anti-magic cone in front of the central eye. And hope for the best. Basically, that's when you're you're fighting against the beholder as players. Now, when you're using beholders as a DM, that whole randomness, that's a double-edged sword, because that applies to you when you're making your attacks too. You got to roll that d10 and figure out, crap, asleep. What the hell can I do with asleep? This is a bunch of 8th level characters. And I'm going to affect 40 hit points. Well, has anybody really been hurt bad? Maybe I'll target somebody who's been hurt really bad. But if nobody's been hurt really bad, that's kind of a wasted, eye stock. Or if somebody is not facing the central eye and has some sort of magic item that keeps them from being charmed, well, then the charm ray or the dominate ray, that's going to be ineffective against them. But that's just sort of the luck of whatever your die roll is. So you've got to kind of keep in mind that you're never quite going to know every round what the beholder is going to be able to do. And you're going to have to think a lot on your feet about who you're going to target with each of these rays. And then also think about, from the monster standpoint, how much of the DM's knowledge do you want to allow the monster to have? There's a lot of times that I find myself kind of secretly making a roll on a digital die roller that my players can't see, where I'm kind of trying to think to myself, okay, is this monster gonna know something about the PCs? And if I think there's a certain percentage chance, I'll just roll a D100. And if it's under that percentage chance, okay, yeah, they know it or they can guess it and they're going to use that attack. But if they don't, it's like, okay, they have no way of knowing that. They're going to go with something that they think is devastating, when really the party's already prepared for that, and it's not going to do the monster any good. Because there are times I do want to make the party feel like all that preparation they've done does count for something. Where when the monster tries its really special thing, it's just going to find it doesn't work that well. Because they already have planned ahead for that. And you don't want to constantly undermine your party's preparation for a big battle. And likely when they are going up against a beholder, they likely know that a beholder is there, and they likely know they're going up against, so they're probably going to plan for this battle. I mean, unless they're just either a really inexperienced party, in which case, why are they playing such high-level characters? Or they are a very naive group of players, or they're just the kinds that they're kind of a Leroy Jenkins party, where it's just whoosh, weapons out, charge ahead. They don't care what's there. Which, that could be fun too. Those kind of battles are always hilarious on both sides. Okay, so now where would you place a beholder in a campaign? We've already seen from Volo's Guide to Monsters that there's a lot of lore about various beholders, beholderkin, that is compiled from some of the earlier editions, and it's fleshed out, and it gives the beholders a real sense of where they belong in the campaign world. But the various beholderkin, and we get an example of how you can use these in the campaign Waterdeep Dragon Heist. If you haven't read that, that's a really good read to figure out how a beholder works when it has built an entire infrastructure around itself. The conceit is that there is the Xanathar, which is the crime boss of Waterdeep, which is actually a beholder. And Xanathar, as you'll find out, that's not the name, that's more of a title of this beholder. And this beholder runs Waterdeep's underworld. It has various lesser beholderkin that act as scouts, guards, and watchers throughout the entire city. And it also has an entire cult of humanoids and enslaved creatures of all kinds. There's all sorts of other aberrations that work for it. And it's got a huge, elaborate lair that is basically built out on the principles of what they show you in Volo's guide. And it, one of the things that it has in that lair is it has a gallery where it contains the mummified remains of all of the previous Xanathars, which have also been beholders. And so it basically will take people there to intimidate them. The idea that the current Xanathar wants to get across to anybody visiting there is, look at all those who have challenged me, and I alone am standing. When in reality, each one of those at one time was the Xanathar crime lord, and then through the process of dream creation that we talked about before, a subsequent Xanathar came along and defeated it. So the current Xanathar only had to fight one of those, but they kind of have all had this macabre gallery going on, and now it has all of these desiccated, mummified corpses of the previous Xanathars there. And of course, that's going to be intimidating for anybody it brings there to talk to. It's like, oh crap, this thing defeated all of those. Oh, jeez. Because of course, that's what he's trying to make you think. So it's a really great exercise in how to flesh out an infrastructure built around a beholder that sets itself up as kind of a godfather of organized crime. All right, now reskinning the beholder. You know what? They've already done all of that for you. You have all of those different beholderkin from all of those earlier editions of D&D, and honestly, folks, you don't have to go out to a hobby store or go to eBay and try to buy copies of all of those old books. You don't even have to go to DM's Guild and buy PDF versions of all those old books unless you just want to. You can go and look at literally hundreds of fan-run sites on the internet and find the fully fleshed out stat blocks for all of the different monsters from all of the previous editions of D&D. And it's there's just a treasure trove of information out there that is available for you. And, if you find yourself running a lot of campaigns and delving into a lot of old material like I do, then of course it's nice to go and buy the source in digital form like I usually do from DM's Guild, because I like the fact that I can so easily search it and I can use it in streams. I can use it and easily access the information for my players when we're playing games and doing stuff like that. So that's the format that I prefer. I know some people, they love to have the hardback or the paper version of the books, and that's great, but obviously the hardbacks and the paper versions of those old books get quite expensive compared to buying the PDFs. All right, so like I said, all of that stuff is done for us, so I'm not even going to try to give you any new ideas. All right, so now we come to the Q&A, and I see we do have a few people in the chat. So, do you guys have any questions on the on the orcs. Okay, let me see. Herds of Beholderkin. What can go wrong? Yes. The great over here does sound scary, doesn't it? Hey, Gift to Gabby. Thanks for joining us. Working on world building. Great. Working on orcs. 3 groups in my head. Nomadic ones, roaming mercenary tribes and villages. Oh, okay. Okay, so Skylin. As a DM, would you let your party target specific eye stocks, and how would you split the HP for it? Great question. Well, in earlier editions of D&D, they actually did give the eye stalks a separate AC. So let's go back to the web pages and let's go to the 5th edition Beholder. Now you see the armor class, it just has 18 armor class. So yeah, I think that what I would do, I would definitely have to wing it in terms of how many hit points are in each eye stock. So it's 19d10. So let's say 9d10 of its hit points are in the central body and 1d10 in each of the eye stocks. So kind of just whatever your hit point total is. So like if you have 180 here, so what is 180 divided by 19 is, I want to say that's like 9 and change. So maybe give every eye stock 9 hit points, and then if you want to hit the central body, if you roll an 18, I would say if you roll an 18 to a 20 on a modified hit, then you probably are just hitting the main body. If you roll maybe a 20 or above, and you have said that you're targeting one of the eye stocks, I'd probably let you target that specific eye stock. The trade-off for that would be, if you do more than 9 points of damage, you're going to get rid of that eye stock, but you're not going to deal any additional damage. So if you score a critical hit and you were aiming at one of those eye stocks, okay, you rolled 34 points of damage. Great. You did 9 points of damage and you lopped off that eye stock. The rest of that 34 points of damage goes to waste. So that's kind of the way I would run it. I would give them the opportunity to target a specific eye stock, and I would have kind of in my head what amount of hit points that eye stock has. But if they tell me I'm making a called shot on that eye stock and they succeed and get rid of it, they don't get any extra damage to the main body. So, and if you are, that's something you probably want to tell the party early in the fight, like as you're setting up for initiative. You're going to say, hey guys, here you go. You got this thing. You guys know beholders, the eye stocks. Each eye stock has 9 hit points. Each eye stock has an armor class that it's greater than 20 to hit it. So 21 and above, you hit the eye stock. If you do a called shot, you can hit a specific eye stock, but the most you'll ever do in damage hitting an eye stock is 9 points of damage. Because if you lop off the eye stock, the extra damage doesn't carry over to the main body. Get everybody on that page before they start attacking. Because if you try to wait until somebody makes the first called shot, then they're going to be like, well, wait a minute, that's no fair, man, blah, 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 blah. And you'll have to deal with that. So just set that up ahead of time and lay that out for you. And I'm glad you asked that question, because that would be something I may not necessarily think of. Although, if you have players that are familiar with old editions, they would know that those old editions do have specific armor classes for the eye stocks and specific hit points for each eye stock. All right. Thank you. That's a good question, Skyland. All right. All right. So, any other questions that we have about the Beholder? And Gabby, I'm looking at your note about the orcs. I haven't done a deep dive on orcs, but a couple of months ago, if you run over to the YouTube channel, I did a 5-part series on goblins and did everything with goblins and goblinoids and all the various different types and society, culture, religion, and how you can use those as a campaign. And orcs, while they're a different monster type, they fill a similar niche in the campaign as goblins do. So if you want to, you can go and maybe look at that 5-part series on goblins and perhaps get some ideas of how you could modify those things for orcs. So that would be something that you might want to take a look at. And then, of course, like if you keep showing up and you keep asking about orcs, well, maybe we'll do a Monster Monday specifically on orcs. I'm not above playing to the requests of the audience. That's kind of how you build followers, I think. All right, so let me go ahead and let me switch back over to this. I'm going to go into the wrap up, I believe, and then I will check chat one more time to see if there are any additional questions before we end. All right, so I have been DM Gallibond. This has been our Monster Monday special on Beholders. I have 3 other streams that I do every week. All of those are actual play sessions. On Sunday afternoons at 2 p.m., we do the Walker of Waterdeep, which is a planeswalking game that mixes the lore between 5th edition D&D and Magic the Gathering. They have just finished a several months of real time and about a month of game time in the plane of Kamigawa. Where they have been working on some tasks and helping to resolve the Kami War in Kamigawa, and now they are back to their home base of Waterdeep. Then on Thursday nights, we do the Sword Coast Chronicles. This is a 5th edition love letter to the published campaigns, and right now they are in the storyline of Curse of Strahd. So they are in the demiplane of Barovia, and the party is currently at the Abbey of St. Markovia. They are in the company of Irina Koliana, who in my game is actually played by a guest player. She's a player who plays in my Sunday game. She wanted to come over and play a few sessions in the Thursday game, so I gave her Irina to play. And so she's actually having a lot of fun interacting with the regular players in that game. Then on Saturday nights, we're actually, I think this Saturday, we're actually going to have our session 1. Although, to hedge my bets, I'm going to call it session 0.5. We've finally assembled the full party. We had everybody roll up their characters. The people that still needed to rolled up their characters last week. And we will do the introductions for the 3 new characters that have been created. And then a party of 6 will begin delving into the original Temple of Elemental Evil using 2nd edition D&D rules. So that's every Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. Except, of course, Saturday nights when I have a conflict with my season tickets. Because I paid for those season tickets, I'm going to go sit in the stadium and yell my full head off. And hopefully the 11 players out there will make me happy instead of making me annoyed. All right. That is it for the other streams. Let me go back and see. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you all for hanging out. We really appreciate you guys being here. If you're on the Twitch, we really love it if you would follow us on Twitch. You'll ask for a notification about all of the times that we go live. We do the 4 streams every week, including this Monster Monday stream every Monday night. And if you're watching us on the YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, click the post notification bell so that you too get notified every time new content drops, and share the channel with your friends, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's on Twitch. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the end slate, and I am going to go over to the Twitch page. We are part of 2 teams on Twitch. We are part of the Game Rebel Network. We are also part of the Small Streamer Community team. And this month, we are looking at people from the small streamer community, trying to find those folks who may be online right now, and we will raid them at the end of our stream. So let me go ahead and pull up the list of people who are streaming. Attack Rack. She does art. That's kind of a nice chill way to end the evening, is with people doing art. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to raid Attack Rack. All right, so let's go ahead back here. All right, thank you guys so much for hanging out. And we hope that you have a wonderful week. We hope that we will see you back here again next time for Monster Monday. And please join us for some of our other streams. And check out our YouTube archives. Take care, everyone. Talk to you later. Good night.